Hey, what's up, guys? So today I'm going to be doing a review of Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, and it stars Tom Hanks. This movie, when I do a review, I don't give any spoilers, and I don't give away any critical information that's going to ruin the movie for you if you haven't seen it. I don't feel like a review is required. I don't feel like in order to do a review, it's required that you give away all the details that happen in the film, but rather you give details on how the film was made and the quality of performances, choreography, things like that. So, without further ado, well, thank you very much. Here comes my review of the King, baby, Elvis. So, to get started, first thing I want to talk about is this film called Elvis has entirely too little Elvis. They should have called this movie Colonel Parker, because that's who it follows the most. I'm not giving away any of the details in that whole storyline. But what I am going to say is, as far as Tom Hanks' performance, and I've seen a lot of Tom Hanks films, I feel like this might be on the list of his worst performances ever. His accent is nondescript, and the thickness of said accent varies wildly, and the type of accent actually changes pretty drastically throughout. In fact, at one point my wife said, "What kind of accent is that?" I told her generic Eastern European, and that's not a slight on anyone from Europe. That's, if you've seen someone who's not European do a European accent that isn't good at it, you know what I'm saying. I never thought I would be critiquing special effects in a film about Elvis, but I gotta talk about that fat suit that Tom Hanks wears. Doesn't look real, and it looks weird and cheap. Now, the movie is about 2 hours and 40 minutes, if I recall properly, for the runtime. And first thing everyone's gonna think about or ask about is the music. How's the music? Well, I have to say that the young man that portrayed Elvis did an absolutely fantastic job of speaking, moving, doing everything he could to be Elvis. This kid is the best Elvis impersonator I've ever seen. Now, unfortunately, there's far too few and too short of scenes where Elvis is actually performing or singing. I would have loved to have seen more of that. Gives you very little backstory on who Elvis is. I mean, where he comes from, what he's about, what his beliefs are, what he cares about, what his priorities are. These things are missing. Now, as far as choreography goes, it was random, and it jumped around like crazy with oversaturation, not enough saturation in some places. It was weirdly shot. It had a few scenes that had a feel of almost like Sin City, but it was in color, and the contrast was all over the place. As far as the tone of the film, it changed wildly. For the first half hour to 40 minutes, I would say there was no tone that could be followed. I don't mean that there was no action or was it stylized. It was very stylized. However, it jumped all over the place. There were so many quick cuts and jumps from different events and occasions that were occurring. You had no sense of time or wait for anything that was happening. Nothing carried any weight. Now, when I say the word Elvis, an absolute icon and legend and inspiration for generations of musicians and singers and performers comes to mind. And unfortunately, with this film, it didn't feel like we were looking at the legend that was deserved. We didn't see much of the icon or the man. What we saw was a brash, distasteful almost representation. It felt like someone doing a cover of a great king. And quite frankly, this movie should have been the best representation of any artist that we've ever seen a documentary about. I mean, we've seen great films like Walk the Line or Ray or Straight Outta Compton that absolutely nailed the story, the tone, the music, and all the things you want to see in those movies. And for their flaws or for some of the overpolished of the characters in those movies, they gave you at least an idea of who you were looking at. I feel like that was missing in Elvis. And finally, the last thing I'm going to say, because I can't avoid saying it with this, there was actual rap and hip-hop music in this movie. And they used it a couple of times, and it did not land. Every time that they played it, it immediately ripped me right out of the experience, right out of the film. And my wife felt the same way. She said, "Why is that in there? That doesn't belong. That doesn't even feel right." And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you my final score on the movie. Unfortunately, I have to give it a 4, which means, in my opinion, Elvis has left the building. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like my videos, subscribe, and in the future I'm going to be doing reviews on virtually anything you want me to do a review on. So please comment on this video. I'm just getting started on things. I really could appreciate, some likes and shares, some comments, and definitely subscription. So until next time, we'll see you later.